So I was actually talking about descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics yesterday. Could someone tell me? I don't know whether this has been already taken in the previous sessions. Any input? Someone, what is descriptive analytics?
Descriptive analytics. Sorry, Shivam, go ahead.
No, please go ahead, Puneet.
Okay. Descriptive analytics is all about summarizing the past or what has happened. Predictive talks more into what can happen or what is likely to happen. And prescriptive is further into like what are the actions to be taken to make something happen.
Okay, okay, brilliant. Okay. So descriptive statistics and inferential statistics, you must be familiar with this because yesterday when I interacted with you, I got a sense that all of you are very comfortable with statistics. Could someone tell me what is the difference between descriptive statistics and inferential statistics? Familiar with these words? At least inferential statistics? No response. Okay, fine. So like Puneet just said, descriptive statistics is basically you describe the data which is available with you. Like say, for instance, you have the record of people who visited your store and, you were able to tell what is the average age of the people who visited, what is, the income level, something perhaps you can guess using those, whatever the shopping things they've purchased and all of that, right? So essentially you're describing, how many people visited, when is it that a customer is likely to, sort of visit, as in, I'm sorry, that is something else. Basically, you look at the data and say how many people have visited, what are the stuff they bought, and things like that. Basically describing what has happened and how many customers visited on the weekends, what is the average age, what is the gender, or what is the highest spending, and things like this. Okay, basically describe the data, whatever is available with us. Now, descriptive statistics also same. Descriptive statistics is essentially whatever we did yesterday. That is mean, median, mode, standard deviation, variance, interquartile range, highest, lowest, and all those kinds of things. You're only talking about the data that you have. Like say, for instance, you conduct a census of India, you have collect data of all sorts, and then you basically merely describe the data. You say life expectancy is this much, maternity mortality rate is this much, or whatever else, the education level is this much. So you're just basically summarizing the data and saying this is what is available, this is the data we have. Our highest income is this, lowest is that, who is below poverty line, who is above, who is in middle class, all the whatever data, you're basically summarizing data. That is descriptive statistics. Now, in contrast, you have something called as inferential statistics. So inferential statistics is something like based on the data that you have, are you going to say something more about that something else? As in, I have, which is typically the domain of, let's say, hypothesis testing. You collect a sample and they say, based on the sample, I understand there is a pattern in the sample, and very likely this is likely to be true for the population as well. So that is inferential. You're inferring something based on what you already know or whatever pattern you observed. Okay, inferential statistics, basically you infer from what you have as opposed to describing what you have, saying this is what is in the data. And you have inferential statistics where you talk about, let's say, typically in hypothesis testing, you say you take a sample and say because this is true for the sample, very likely this is also going to be true for the population. Okay, then you run a series of t-test, z-test, chi-square test, and all those kinds of things. The other thing is forecasting. Okay, you look at the present data, you look at sales figures for the last 10 years, and then you say, oh, because this has happened and I can see a trend, and therefore for the next quarter or for the next year, this is likely to happen. We are likely to sell this much. Right? I hope that makes sense. That is your inferential statistics. Based on what data you've collected, you're able to talk about a future or what is likely to happen in the future, or you're going to predict something about the larger population. Right? So I think Puneet has summed it up really well. So descriptive statistics is, descriptive analytics is just take the data and find out mean, median, mode, and all the other things which generally describe the data. Predictive is basically you talk about the future, which is forecasting, looking at the data of the last 10 years, this is likely to happen. And prescriptive, again, is saying, if you know this is what is going to happen, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to sort of use that data for our advantage from a marketing perspective, perhaps? Okay. So I'm just giving you this particular slide talks about an additional type of analytics, which the Harvard Business Review talks about. HBR talks about these things. Descriptive, basically what happened, describe what has happened. And typically in a marketing context, you have things like market share, historic sales data, region-wise classification. So all of this basically is just describing this is what it is. Diagnostic. This is the additional thing which HBR talks about. It's an evolving subject. So, you get all sorts of inputs. So diagnostic is, why did this happen? For instance, why did people stop using your service? Why did people stop using Indigo or Air India or Netflix? What is the reason why? Let's say if you're having a small food delivery outlet, so why is it that people are not buying your product anymore? Or is it because taste isn't good enough? Is it because your delivery is slow? Or is it because your pricing is too high? Or is it because you have strong competitors? Diagnostic, you just sort of try to understand why something happened. Okay, just as a doctor would do. What is the, based on the symptoms, what has gone wrong? A predictive, of course, very easily simply understood. Future, if this has happened, what is likely to happen? Sales forecasting, demand forecasting, and all of that, and particularly from a marketing perspective. Then you have prescriptive, which is basically what should we do next. And I mean, the most interesting way in which we see this in action is when you watch a YouTube video, you get a recommendation. Or when you watch something on Netflix, they would actually recommend a video of a similar genre, saying, this is what you're likely to enjoy. So, so 4 key types of data analytics.